Hey there, parents. Are you tired of trying to teach your children consequences without seeing any positive change in their behavior? And are you worried about taking things away or punishing your kids because besides not working very well, it doesn't feel good to you and you're afraid it might be damaging to your relationship with them? In this video, I'm going to share with you 3 practical and proven tips that you can start using today that will help your children understand the impact of their actions and create positive long-term behavior without resorting to punishment. And towards the end of the video, I'll even throw in one more bonus tip, a strategy that I've been teaching my clients for almost 20 years now that you can start using right away that is going to help you reset the situation with consequences in your home and that will lead to real results. My name is Todd Sarner and I'm a psychotherapist and parenting coach. My mission is to help parents like you by providing you with the education and resources you need to have the family life you've always wanted and to raise children that thrive. Before I get into the tips, I wanted to share with you a story related to this topic involving a client of mine. Let's call her Marianne. Marianne reached out to me yesterday in an email to update me on her situation, which is what inspired me to do this video today. The story started during one of our scheduled coaching sessions a few weeks ago. Maybe this situation that she was in might feel a little familiar to you. In that session, Marianne was just really upset and feeling bad and guilty about an incident that happened with her daughter the night before. For weeks on end, they had been having problems at night where her daughter would make a big mess in the room, and Marianne, despite her best efforts to be kind and reasonable and consistent, could not get her daughter to clean up the room, and it was leading to a lot of frustration. That night, a little bit before bedtime, Marianne had really done her best to be sweet and to be clear and to look her daughter in the eye and say, "Hey honey, let's keep the room clean tonight, okay?" And her daughter said, "Yes, mommy." So she just thought, oh, it's gonna be okay. I'm gonna get to that glass of wine. We're not gonna have any problems. But then she came in the room and you already know what happened. It was just a mess. And to top things off, Marianne stepped on a toy that she didn't see there and kind of twisted her ankle a little bit, which was just the straw that broke the camel's back. And then, unfortunately, Marianne really lost her cool with her daughter. She said a lot of things in a very harsh and angry tone that she really regretted later. She said things like, "Why does this always have to be so hard? Why don't you just pick up your room sometimes? Why does this always have to be so hard?" She just kept saying things like this as she kind of angrily picked up toys from the ground while her daughter sat there on the bed looking shell-shocked and sad. And it just, at the same time as she was feeling so much anger, Marianne was feeling a lot of guilt already. And then, when she was done picking up the toys, Marianne made the mistake that she later regretted the most. Out of frustration and exhaustion, she looked at her daughter and she said, "Sweetie, we don't have time for a bedtime story. That took too long. I'm really frustrated. It's time to go to bed now. I love you, sweetie." And then walked out and turned off the light. Marianne went and poured herself that glass of wine, but she had a very hard time getting anywhere even close to relaxing. She felt horrible. She felt like she might be the worst parent on earth. And this was made worse when she heard her precious daughter not settling down to sleep, but gently sobbing in the other room. When Marianne told me the story that day, tears running down her face, I just knew we had to change the plan for what we were going to talk about that day and just focus on the information that I'm going to share with you now. Information on how to teach children consequences the right way, the effective way, the relationship-friendly way that doesn't involve all the upset and pain and guilt. We're going to come back to Marianne's story later, and I'm going to share with you what happened. I now want to teach you my top 3 tips for how to teach children cause and effect in a positive, long-lasting way that doesn't involve punishment or yelling or taking things away. And then after that, I'm going to teach you that bonus strategy, and we're going to loop back to Marianne's story so I can tell you what ended up happening with her. Tip number 1, consequences should be clear and related to what they did or didn't do. Now, this one might sound really obvious, right? But I put it here first for a reason. In my experience, most parents that I've ever worked with are making one or multiple mistakes in this area. It is very important that we don't assume. It's very important that we are very clear with our children about what the rules and expectations are. And this includes being on the same page as parenting partners, and it involves being consistent over time with enforcement of those consequences. Not that one day you're going to do it and the next day you're not going to do it, depending on your mood or what's going on. You have to be clear, you have to be on the same page, and you have to be consistent for consequences to work. It's also very important that the consequences that your child experiences are clearly linked to what they did or didn't do. Too often what parents do is just take away what's most important to the child in the moment, like their favorite toy or the birthday party they're really looking forward to going to on Saturday. But that's just going to lead to cries of, "It's not fair," because it's not. It's not really linked to what they're doing or not doing here on Tuesday. It's just you trying to take away something that you know is going to impact them, even though it's not associated. But bigger picture, like I said before, what we want is we want our kids to anticipate consequences. We want them to get, if I do this, this happens. If I don't do this, this happens. And they're not going to build those neural pathways in their brain if what they do or didn't do is not linked in a logical and clear way to what happens. And one more point about this first tip. It's very, very important that we don't take away something our children need. Now, if Marianne's daughter needed the bedtime story to calm down and to relax and to go to sleep, that can't be taken away. Just like we can't take away our love, even in the moment out of frustration. We can't take away food because we're frustrated. It's too critical for their survival. We have to establish what they need and not take it away. What we have to let go away naturally is optional things, fun things, things they don't need, just things they want to do. Those are the things that we concentrate our consequences on. Tip number 2. Consequences must be enforced in a matter-of-fact way. When we are loud, when we are being aggressive, frustrated, angry, sarcastic, it triggers defensive mechanisms in the brain of the other, and that makes it biologically very unlikely that they're going to learn anything at all. And for that reason, consequences must be taught to our children in a calm, grounded, matter-of-fact way whenever possible. It's like, what do you mean you want dessert, honey? You didn't finish all your dinner. You know we don't have dessert if we didn't have dinner. Or, oh, honey, I'm sorry. We don't have enough time to play that game that we play sometimes. We had a really hard time at the dinner table, so let's just read our bedtime story because it's time to go to bed. You know, it's like that. It's calm, it's matter-of-fact, it's not shaming, it's not blaming. I think one of the most effective pieces of advice and guidance that I give my parents is to see consequences as a promise you're making your child. Like, I'm going to give you the biggest hug later, or we're going to go to the park and play tomorrow. You know, any promise you make your child, see your consequences as a promise that is beneficial for you and for them and for your family system. So if you say, we're going to pull over the car because you're being loud in the car, I'm just fulfilling my promise with you to do it. If I tell you there's no dessert without dinner, without finishing your dinner, then I'm going to follow through on that as a promise I made to you. If you hold it in your heart and in your thoughts that way, I think you're going to find it is a lot easier to be calm and grounded and matter of fact, because you won't feel guilty, you won't feel bad, you won't feel as frustrated. You'll see yourself as doing a good job of parenting in the moment you are delivering on that promise. Tip number 3, consequences require that you follow through. Now, I hope you're starting to see, as we get into this third tip, that the tips all build on each other. If you're clear and consistent about the consequences, if they're linked to what your child did or didn't do, if you're delivering them in a matter-of-fact way, and you're not taking away something that your child really needs, like a bedtime story, it is very, very important that you actually follow through with the consequences you said were going to happen, that you fulfill the promise. You know, I know a lot of the parents I've worked with, and this goes for me too, feel bad about following through with consequences sometimes. Maybe we're feeling guilty about something we did yesterday. Maybe we're feeling like we weren't clear enough and we're conflicted inside. Look, I do want you to mostly concentrate on the things I said before now. I want you to focus on the clarity, and I want you to focus on the link being there. I want you to focus on being matter of fact. But if you are all those things, it is really important for you and for your child and for your whole family that you do follow through. Because if you don't, they're not actually consequences. It's not going to complete the loop, and then the behaviors are going to keep happening, and you're going to keep getting frustrated, and that's just not good for anyone. A really important thing to understand here is it's important that we let the consequences develop inside our children, that we're letting them feel the impact of what they do or don't do in a way that takes root. Because if it's always external reaction and forcing them to behave a certain way, that doesn't really serve them long term. In the psychological literature and the philosophical literature, they call it intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation. If we do consequences in this calm, matter-of-fact way that's linked, and we actually follow through without getting big and reactive, it lets the child feel their feelings. It lets them feel the impact, and that's what's going to actually serve them for the rest of their lives. I want to get to that bonus strategy now, but first, if this video is helpful to you, I hope you'll consider liking it and subscribing to our channel. It helps us grow our channel, and it helps us know what parenting content is most relevant and helpful to you. And now for the bonus strategy. The bonus strategy that I wanted to share with you is what I call hitting the reset button. What I think would be best is that after watching this video, you pick one behavior that you're struggling with your child. They're not putting their shoes on to go to school in the morning, or they're not doing a chore or their homework, or they're being disruptive at the dinner table, or like Mary Ann's story, they're making a mess in their room at night and not cleaning it up. I want you to pick one behavior that you're having a hard time with, and then I want you to employ this strategy of hitting the reset button. I want you to see this as a strategy that you use when you need to kind of like start over with a dynamic, something that's been a problem that you haven't been handling right, and you want to kind of hit that reset button and start doing it right from right now. Hitting the reset button is what you do to get a fresh start on a situation that hasn't been going well, and you just want to kind of start over with your child. So first, like I said, I want you to identify one area where you've been having problems with your child's behavior that's been going on for a little bit of time. The next part of the strategy is actually probably the most important. I want you to find the right time to address the situation with your child, meaning you're not in the middle of a fight, you're not really tired or frustrated, it's not almost bedtime, it's like maybe the middle of the afternoon, and your child is just feeling connected to you and they love you and everything's fine. And that's the time you choose to address the situation about consequences. So the vibe is good, your child's feeling connected to you, and that's when you hit the reset button. And you say something kind of like this. The exact words are not important, just get the vibe, get the approach. You say something like, "Hey son, hey daughter, you know, I've been thinking about it a lot and I was talking to your dad about it. We've been having a really hard time before bedtime. You know, your room's been messy and I've been getting frustrated, and baby, I don't want to be frustrated with you. I'm your mom. I love you so much. But I fear that I haven't been clear enough with you. That's my responsibility. So let me be really clear." So you take the responsibility. You're not lashing yourself and I'm an awful parent. You're just kind of putting it on yourself a little bit because you are the parent. You are the one kind of in charge of this. And it tends to relax their defenses when you do this. And then you say, "Look, here's how it's gonna go. It's really important, babe, that you clean up your room. That's just what we do in the house. It keeps things clean. People don't trip and fall and get frustrated. So it's really important. That's what we do. So if you don't clean up your room at night, I'm not gonna get mad. I'm not gonna get frustrated. I don't wanna do that. But the next day, what we're gonna do is instead of playing outside, instead of going and doing fun things you like to do, we're just actually gonna do chores for a couple hours. We're gonna clean up your room, we're gonna clean up the whole house, because I think it's really important that we get this kind of reset, that we kind of do it the right way. And that's just what we're gonna do, honey." And it's like that. It's not threatening them. It's not like, oh, I'm angry with you and you're going to be punished. It's just kind of like laid out, and it's reasonable, and it's linked, and it's leaning in on what we do as a family rather than them being bad. And I think you'll find, again, that you don't have to have these exact words, but I think if you learn these components and this energy, I think you're going to learn it really, really works to reset the situation with anything that you've been having problems with along these lines. Now, before we end the video for today, let me get back to the story about Marianne, my client. Let me update you on what she shared with me yesterday so you can hear how these tips played out in a real life situation. Marianne and I spent a full hour that day going over these tips, going over examples, me answering her questions and concerns until she felt really good about going out there, hitting the reset button, and trying to transform the situation that had become so troubling to her with her daughter. The first thing Marianne did is a few days after our session, she had one of these hitting the reset button conversations with her daughter. She picked the right time. She picked a time where she was feeling really calm and grounded and loving with her daughter, that she knew her daughter was feeling connected to her. And then she had that conversation with her along the lines that we discussed. And that conversation with her daughter couldn't have gone better. It went almost exactly the way we planned it. She made sure the vibe was good, that her daughter was feeling connected, and she just took positive responsibility first for her own actions. She said, honey, I'm sorry I get frustrated. That's my fault. It's not your fault. I don't want to be frustrated with you. I don't think I've been clear. I don't think I've been consistent, but look, this is how we're going to do it. I love cuddling with you at night. I love reading you a bedtime story. So I'm not going to take that away anymore, and I'm not going to get frustrated with you. If you don't clean up your room after I asked you, it's really important, honey, that you learn that that's what we have to do in our family, in our house. That's what we have to do. So if you don't clean up your room after I asked you, I'm not going to get mad. I'm still going to read you a story, and I'm going to cuddle you, and I'm going to love you, and I'm going to kiss you goodnight. But the next day, honey, we're going to do some chores together. We're going to clean up your room and do some other chores, and that's going to maybe come first before playing and doing other things that you like doing, okay? And then Marianne dedicated herself to doing it, to fulfilling that promise. When Marianne reached out to me in email yesterday, she was almost ecstatic. I can feel it in the email. She was so happy. She did have to enforce the consequences once or twice, I think she said. She did have to warn her daughter several times about, hey, honey, you have to clean your room. But after a couple weeks of consistent action and following through and doing it the right way, it had completely transformed the situation. Her daughter was cleaning up the room every single night without any struggle, without any harshness, and it just felt so much better to her. Marianne wrote to me that this was a major victory for her. It was much, much bigger than the specific situation of her daughter not cleaning her room. It made her feel more confident. It made her feel more capable. It made her feel like she was empowered to take a difficult situation that was making her feel awful and turn it into something that was positive for her and for her daughter, and that brought more harmony and peace and more order in their home. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please, please, please leave any comments or questions you have below. But like I said, I want you to pick one behavior that you've been struggling with in your home and then dedicate yourself to practicing these tips as best you can and then see what happens. If you liked this video, please be sure to check out some of the other content on our channel and check the description below for our free Transformative Parenting Foundations course and community. And please let us know for sure if you have any suggestions for future videos. We're going to keep track and prioritize the most requested topics. At the end of each video, I like to share one of my favorite parenting quotes that is usually related to the topic that I hope will inspire you and make your day better as a parent. This one is by Peggy O'Mara, who said, "Effective discipline is based on loving guidance. It is based on the belief that children are born innately good and that our role as parents is to nurture their spirits as they learn about limits and boundaries. Effective discipline presumes that children have reasons for their behavior and that cooperation can be engaged to solve shared problems." I love that quote. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.